Hey everybody, who knew baby food could be such a roller coaster? Seriously, have you ever given it more than a passing thought? I hadn't. Are you one of those super parents obsessed with giving your little munchkins the best start in life? Or are you more of the give me convenience over everything type? No judgments, just curious. Today I had a total blast chatting with the marvelous Erica Bethe Levin, the brains behind Globowl. We hit it off instantly. Erica's on a mission to make baby food all about flavor, health, and fun times at the table. Hear, hear. We dove into the concept of the flavor window for babies between 6 and 18 months. This is the golden time, apparently, to introduce all sorts of yummy tastes, textures, and spices. Apparently, it can help prevent picky eating and shape their taste buds for life. We also got real about why pouch feeding should be a no-go. Did you know baby food in pouches was even a thing? Spoiler alert, it should not be. That's why the best way to be fed has been and always will be spoon feeding. Erica's passion for fostering adventurous eaters and ensuring balanced nutrition for kids is downright contagious. You absolutely don't want to miss this episode. So grab your favorite snack, get a spoon, get cozy, and join us for this delightful down-to-earth chat with Erica Bethe Levin. Oh, and check this out. How's this for an awesome acronym? Erica's company is called Globowl, Globowl. Listen to this. Giving little ones bountiful, organic, wholesome love. Right? Good, yeah? Call me acronym man. Erica, you owe me one. Erica's insights into organic ingredients and the importance of diverse textures were real eye-openers. And can we talk about those glass jars? Not only are they eco-friendly, but they also have endless creative uses. For me, personally, I'd whip up some keto cheesecakes in them right away. Yes! I think you're really going to enjoy Erica Bethe Levin on 50 Tastes of Grey. Erica, welcome to 50 Tastes of Grey. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
When was the last time someone other than your husband said, let's have a good time?
Well, I feel like my friends say that all the time.
Oh, good.
Doesn't mean I always do, but I feel like they definitely want to. And I think even at work, so much of what we do is really pleasurable and fun, and the events we get to attend and the conferences and just honestly, even doing demos at stores can be a good time. So we're
That's
not
great.
short of it over here.
I'm guessing that the demos that you're doing around the country are
Mhm.
in more upscale situations and markets. Is that true?
Generally, yes,
Yeah.
because of the fact that we are a natural organic product. And so for year one, our focus was really getting into those kinds of stores. And
Right.
and we're still progressing in that way right now, where we're just trying to infiltrate that organic channel a little bit further. But yeah, it's we definitely are all over the country in various locations, but the stores themselves tend to be a little bit of a more premium sort of location or store.
Sure. Like the prime markets, Sprouts, things like that, places like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. We're not at Sprouts yet, but we are talking to hopefully expand with them as well. But Central Markets and Fresh Time and Town and Country and Gelson's in LA. So we're pretty proud of the lineup.
Gelson's, it's funny that you mentioned that because years and years ago, I created a product line, food product line, and Gelson's was one of my accounts.
Oh wow. Yeah, we love
Yeah.
that store. It's a great store for our customer, and they've been a great partner thus far. We were sad to see what was going on with the fires and some of their stores, but happy to see how much relief they were trying to do for the community. So they're good people.
Yeah. Tell everyone a little bit about Global and the derivation of that name as well.
Sure. I was searching for a name for a very long time and months and months. I'm like, I don't know what to name this thing. And it just came to me one day in the shower. And I called a couple of my friends who are just very good at branding and things like that. And they're like, that's it. That's what we've been waiting for. But yeah, it's just a play on the word global, expanding across the globe, across the world, as our food does. It teaches kids about the world and different cultures through food. And it just seemed to really encapsulate our mission of bringing the world to kids. And that's that's where it came from. It was originally I couldn't get the domain because it was a glowing toilet bowl company. But as soon as I saw that it was available, I don't know what happened to that company. But as soon as I saw it was available, I snagged it. So now we have globowl.com.
And so Global being the baby food invention, how long have you been in business doing Global?
So 3 years. It took about
Wow.
well, yeah, it took about 2 years though of R&D and raising money and finding a manufacturer and perfecting the product and testing the product and all of that. And then we've been selling for just about a year now.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So your approach into the marketplace is making healthy, whole foods with adult flavors for babies, right?
Pretty much. I mean, yeah. So there's no real reason why kids can't eat the same food as we eat as that we eat as adults. And in fact, everywhere around the world, kids really do just eat what their parents are feeding them at the dinner table. And we've gotten to this point of almost like sanitization of baby food where we've stripped it of flavor, we've stripped it of spice and herbs and texture, right? It's just mushy purees. We've stripped it of allergens. And now we have multiple generations of picky eating kids with food allergies, texture
Right.
aversions, even speech delays because of the constant sucking on the spouted pouches. So we're really just throwing back to the way kids used to eat. Our parents and grandparents, they really don't have food allergies for the most part. It really happened once they stopped eating so much of what was good. And here we are today. So we're really just kind of doing what we used to do and doing what the rest of the world does and feeding kids whole meals that are full of all the good stuff minus the bad stuff. So we don't add any sodium, we don't add any sugar. So it's basically what you and I would eat minus the sodium and sugar, which babies shouldn't really be having anyway.
I want to focus on two areas that you just mentioned. One is
Sure.
the allergens and
Hmm.
the fact that you introduce allergens or
Hmm.
allergen related products into your foods. And what is the reason you do that?
So it is scientifically proven that the earlier you introduce allergenic ingredients and allergens in general, that the less likely you are to have food allergies down the line. And this has been researched by doctors and scientists and the USDA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Institute of Health. They all recommend this approach. And so what happened was for a while, they couldn't figure out the tie to food allergies other than all these kids were having, problems and having these peanut allergies and things like that. And so the American Academy of Pediatrics just made a blanket statement saying, let's not give our kids peanuts anymore. And that only lasted, don't quote me, but about 10 years, let's say, maybe even a little bit less. But those are the kids, that's when it all started. And then the American Academy backtracked and said, actually, we should be giving our kids peanuts and allergens. And, now we're kind of slowly making our way back. But if you look at the baby food aisle, 90% of the food is free of the top 10 allergens, top 9 allergens, top 12 allergens, depending on where you are. And that's part of the problem is that a lot of these companies didn't put it back in, even when the AAP suggested that we do. So I'm trying to bring it back. And the companies that are introducing allergens through peanut powders and things like that, great. I'm so glad that's out there. It's bringing awareness to the fact that we should be doing this. But why not just do it through whole natural foods and they could just get their nutrients from the meals that they eat versus having to do anything extra?
It totally makes sense, especially from a medical and scientific standpoint, to be able
Yes.
to do it. It kind of goes along the lines of how vaccines are designed, right? You
Yes.
introduce a little bit of the problem and you build up
Exactly.
immunity to that, right?
Yeah, that's 100% true. Yes. Unfortunately, all of that has been so heavily debated and has unfortunately become a controversial situation. But if you tend to follow the research, the medicine, and the science, then absolutely yes. And we should be exposed to as much as we possibly can to build up our immunity and our systems, our developing systems right from the beginning.
Have you received any information or feedback from people who've purchased products and given it to their children as far as how much they're enjoying it or if they might have had a reaction or anything related to the allergens?
We have gotten a lot of feedback. So generally, we receive happy notes of like, of joy in the fact that they can't believe their kid is eating pad thai. They can't believe their kid is eating tikka. Why didn't I do this before? And especially getting, notes from parents of kids that are a little bit outgrown, they've outgrown the stage of Global, wishing that this was here earlier. I have not heard of any reactions to the allergens, but that very well could be a possibility, because if you were just to give a kid a spoonful of peanut butter, it'd be the same situation, right? So you've got to, you know what you're doing, you know what you're providing to your family, and obviously speak to your pediatrician and all of that, and make sure you consult if you're uncomfortable with it. But really, introducing it early should have the effect that we want, unless a kid is born, and some are, with allergies already.
A little bit about the flavors, the foods that you're introducing. You mentioned pad thai a minute ago, and I was thinking, boy, I
Yes,
wish I had pad thai when I was a child, as far
exactly.
as being a baby. What are some of the other treats and delicious flavors that you have?
I love all of our flavor. It is so fun to have this company. I mean, this is the way I cook for my family. This is what inspired me was, during COVID, my kid was a quarantine baby. She couldn't leave the house. So I'm like, how do I bring the world to her? And I cook the way I cook for my husband and myself. And unfortunately, our first kid is a very picky eater. And I equate it back to not giving him these things. And so, during a time we couldn't leave the house, let alone the country or anywhere else,
Right.
I was cooking and having fun, introducing flavor through my own meals, and did a lot of research with other moms and did focus groups and things on what flavors they'd want to see. And the favorites were pad thai, which we call pad thai for tots, veggie tikka masala, a Yaya's Medi bowl, which is like a Mediterranean bowl, kind of like a hummusy consistency with veggies and whatnot, and then a baby spices bean bowl, which is sort of like a chili for children. And we actually now have launched 2 new SKUs. So within the first year of selling, we've also been really busy on innovation and development of new things. We have a mini stroni, so the Italian soup, and we have a baby bibimbap, which is a Korean rice dish.
Oh man, that just sounds so fantastic. I can imagine what your R&D must have been like. Did you gather a bunch of your people and other
Yeah,
adults and sit around a table and eat the foods yourselves
we
and then
actually
decide?
did. Yeah, we
Tell us
did it.
about how that was
Mhm.
designed.
Sure. So after doing some of that research, just, surveys and focus groups and things like that, then we got to work actually making the recipes and making the food. So I played around with a bunch of the recipes I like, but I know I can't create a product that is made to be packaged and distributed widely. I don't know the science behind that. So I did bring in a consulting chef who does classically trained, Charlie Trotter's alum, but moved into the CPG space when he wanted a more family friendly sort of chef job where he could still be a family man. And so he got really involved in the CPG space and was doing work with Kraft and Unilever and Panera and Red Lobster and all this stuff. So I snagged such an amazing recipe developer in Chef Dan. So he went to town to make sure that the food was authentic while also not having salt or added sodium, not having added sugars. And also, the big goal for me was that we are going to have an all natural organic product with no preservatives. Well, that's hard to do if you want the product to be shelf stable, which was also a requirement in all of my research and for myself as a mom. I'm
Right.
not going to carry ice packs everywhere I go. I'm not going to need to microwave my food. I need shelf stability and convenience. So, how can I make this product as convenient as what's out there in these pouches, but healthier, no microplastics that the child is consuming and all of that? So, he was able to really develop these recipes to be shelf stable without the use of any unnatural preservatives. So we really just use the ingredients in our food combined with the kind of process we use of heating and cooking to maintain its shelf stability. So we're really proud of that. I worked with a very good chef to make it happen. I can't take credit for all of that.
Is the malic acid ingredient added as the preservative for your foods?
For some of them, yeah. So and that's derived from apples and considered, an all natural ingredient. So
Right.
we did that because what we found was when we were using lime and lemon and other things that it had a strong citrus taste. So we needed to find an alternative that was along the lines of, with our mission of being all natural with no preservatives and organic, but that made the food taste a little bit more authentic or, delicious without kind of that acidic flavor. So that's what we used, and I don't know how many other companies are using it, but it's a great ingredient and a great option.
One of the other things I wanted to touch on was the fact that there are a lot of companies that are doing baby food in pouches. And as far as more conscious thinkers, I think that there are concerns that relying on too many pouches can impact a child's development in areas like hand-eye coordination and other
Yes.
aspects of growing up and motor skills. So even though pouches are very, very convenient for parents to have for their children, it's not a good way to feed people.
You said it, not me. But yes, exactly. No, it's a real issue.
Yeah,
The sucking on a pouch, it stifles oral motor development, right? Kids should never be drinking food. They should be chewing it. They need to learn how
right,
to chew for satiety
right.
reasons, right? Once you chew, your body is works slowly to tell, to digest it and tell your body that you're full, so you know when to stop eating. Whereas when you drink
Yeah.
food, you don't get those cues to stop. So it leads to some overconsumption. It leads to the lack of texture. The lack of chewing leads to texture aversions. It can lead to speech delays. The same reason you have to take a passy out of a child's mouth at a certain point. They shouldn't be sucking on a
Hmm.
pacifier. They should not be sucking on a spouted pouch, right? And again, like you said, hand-eye coordination. They should be learning how to use a spoon, a fork, even, kind of these tertiary benefits like eye contact and bonding with the parent or the caregiver, right? That's all important too. And it goes away with these pouches. And on top of all of that, dentists are saying that they have never seen kids under one having cavities the way that they do today with the prevalence they have today. And they equate it to the spouted pouches because the contents just sit on these kids' teeth. So there's a lot of issues. And so again, going back to the convenience, absolutely. So as a mom of two, a very busy working mom of two that, wants convenience myself, I did want the convenience of the pouch, but the health benefits of learning how to chew and taste their food versus just drinking it and all of that. So we're happy with what we came up with and are really proud that we're really the only textured baby food out there starting at 6 months old because kids can eat it. Right. We were made to eat our food even as early as 6 months old.
Oh,
And our
yeah.
food is cooked to a point where the texture is gummable. So there's nothing to worry about, even if the child doesn't have teeth. We do have real ingredients. Our Medi Bowl has feta cheese, our pad thai has egg, we have lentils and just delicious, delicious, nutritious ingredients that offer a full nutrient packed meal in every jar, which also with the pouches, they're supposed to be a snack, so we're giving them the full meal. But these pouches are more of a snack, but then they have more than one at a time because they don't get the cues that they're full. So they end up overeating 2 or 3 pouches at a time. And then economically, you're paying more because they're eating more at a serving, at one sitting than they would if they just ate a full packed meal of nutrients that would give them that fuel that they need and make them feel full.
The breakdown on mother's milk, which would be the product or the
Mm-hmm.
food that the baby would have prior to starting Globowl,
Mm-hmm.
is, I guess the macronutrient breakdown is somewhat in the 50% carbohydrate, 10 to 15% protein, and about 30 to 40% fat, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you looked at, the nutrient breakdown in mother's milk and what your product would need to have and how it would work?
So I've actually never been asked that, and that's a phenomenal question. The way we look at it is that you should be consuming breast milk for a year, no matter how you cut it. That's the recommendation by pediatricians, the USDA, and all of that. So you should be getting, and that's only if the mother can, of course, breastfeed. Otherwise, formula does the job as well. But a child should be having the nutrients from mother's milk or from formula for the first year of their life. So anything that they eat prior to one is augmenting the formula or breast milk. So we don't actually have to have that same breakdown or percentage of carbs, protein, all of that, because they're obtaining that already. So anything, like I said, anything before one is kind of supplemental and it's more exploratory. We want to assist with more of the palate development, the allergen aversion, hopefully kind of introducing those allergens early, the texture, like all of that. That's our focus versus knowing that they're going to be having that mother's milk or formula with it.
Hmm. Mother's milk is really high in kind of like a sweet flavor.
It
And
is.
so I don't know exactly macronutrient wise how that breaks down, but the sweet flavor is kind of built into our DNA. And so we all love sweets because I think they trace it back to mother's milk.
They
Is that
do.
something that was a concern of yours when you were starting the company?
Not really, because they're already getting that, right? And what we're doing is providing the alternative flavors. So, on the tongue, you have different taste buds that absorb or, taste different, all of this. But that no different sort of what is it called? The spice and the umami and the salt and the tang and the acidity and all of that. So while they're at the age that they are, that is when those taste buds are the most active and the most sensitive. So this is the time when we can most easily influence the way they eat forever. So between 4 and 18 months is when we have sort of this flavor window that we can play with. And that's when, they accept these flavors. So even if you think they're not accepting it right now, give them, let's say you give them baby spices bean bowl, which has cayenne in it. It's in such a small amount, they don't taste spice, but the tongue recognizes it once they receive it again. So in a year, you give them cayenne again, and it's not a totally new flavor. They had it during that flavor window and are more willing to embrace and accept it. So we really wanted to make sure that during that time, we were giving them all of these other flavors outside of the sweet to set their palate up for, success and more adventure down the line.
It sounds like that's a really smart kind of approach to food and feeding and eating.
Thank you. We really tried to think of everything and work with pediatricians and chefs to make sure we are doing it right.
What is the medical establishment saying about the products? Are there any nutritional, healthcare, metabolic specialists who've taken a look at your ingredients or your breakdowns and giving you the gold star for what you're doing?
Very much so. And
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that because as a very neurotic Jewish mother, I trust what my doctors tell me to do and always have. So yes, I'm very proud of kind of the network of doctors and medical professionals that have embraced what we're doing. You can find us. We're not for sale anywhere in medical offices, but you can find our jars as a sample because the doctors believe so wholeheartedly in it. They want you to see it and they can tell you where to get it. Obviously, there's no benefit to them other than their patients are going to be healthier, hopefully with a more adventurous palate and less food allergies. But yeah, you can find, pediatric allergists are thrilled by this. Pediatric dentists will have it in their office because personally, anecdotally, our kid's dentist, he's flat out said that the pouches have been one of the worst things he's seen develop for children, having the worst impact on their oral development. So yeah, pediatric dentists, pediatric nutritionists love it, right? Because it's an opportunity to teach kids that chewing aspect from the very beginning, which sets them up to understand when they're full and getting all those right cues. So yeah, we've been very well embraced by the medical world. And in fact, we work with pediatricians as well who have helped develop and backed this recipe. They helped with the size of each, like literally the way we chop it and we cut it so that it's cut properly and it's not a choking hazard. They've helped with the texture, making sure that it's gummable, as I said before. So yeah, we're really proud of kind of the experts and the professionals that have not only embraced it, but are now sharing it with their patients.
Tell us a little bit about the demographic that you're trying to reach.
I mean, honestly, it really depends. We are definitely, obviously, there's definitely an age group of when most kids are born, right? To the age group of the parents. That's the kind of the norm. But then there's people outside of that as well. So, and grandparents, by the way, they love this and they think they're really cool if they find out about us and their kids haven't, because they then tell their kids that they found this great new product. And then so it's been fun to see the generations embrace this too. Not wanting a picky eater is universal, right? Some people buy into the allergen thing. Some never give it a second thought, right? But picky eating is something we don't want as parents. We don't want to carry, a bag full of PB&Js. We don't want to, worry about where we're going to eat on a road trip or at Disney World or wherever, wherever you find us. People that care about that and want to make sure that their kid has a good palate, and not just because they want to take them out to dinner, but because they want them to get the nutrients that they need. And that comes from a vast variety of ingredients and meals. So I would say the mission of this company is very much about fostering in a new generation of kids that have a great appreciation of the world, ushering in a generation of kids that are curious about the world and interested in what's going on outside of our walls. Our goal is really to do that and have this educational component through the food, right? And where does it come from? Why is it important to that culture? My kid can see a video, which is ultimately, we do want a bunch of content on our site that's very educational, sees a kid on the other side of the world eating the same food as they are. are, but they,
Wow.
you know, are all the way over there, thousands and thousands of miles away, or might have a different skin color, or practice a different religion. And, you know, we really want to impact the way that these kids think going forward. And so there's a lot of people in this world that embrace that philosophy and want the same thing. And those people are really absorbing, you know, what we're offering. And not to mention, you know, it's fun to take them out. I take them to restaurants. You know, it's fun to
Right.
experience the world, whatever size that is, you know, with your children. And we're hoping and helping achieve that. I hope.
Let's find out a little bit about you and your background as far as food. Are you a true foodie? Because I can't imagine someone getting into an internationally inspired baby food line if you
Right.
don't have a love of food in the background. So tell us a little bit about your history with food.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, food has been like my life for as long as I can remember. I grew up in a family with an Italian mother and a Jewish father, and so we learned so much about our history, generations before us, our family stories, you know, through the food that my mom made. And my mom cooked my dad's cultural food too, just as well as anybody else. And she is a phenomenal cook. So that is kind of how it started. And I always laughed. Holiday time, like December is all about meatballs and matzo balls, you know, like that's my life. But then you know, my parents also always loved food and appreciated it when we went out of the house. And so I was like one of those little kids at great restaurants, you know, and I loved it and embraced it from the very beginning. And then as I grew up, I actually became a food writer. I still do some of that work. My husband's been in the food industry his whole career. He ran Michelin starred restaurants, opened a brewery. Like food is just totally integrated in everything that we do. So yes, I would say I'm a foodie. I've done the food writing. I've done correspondent work about food, everything. I mean, you name it, it's about food. So yeah, so it's always been a big part of my life. And I really do want it to be part of my kids' life, you know,
Right.
lives, both of them. And because my son did not embrace it, because I was stingy with what I gave him, it was like pureed banana, pureed sweet potato. I didn't give him that flavor and the herbs and the spices that I now talk about all the time. And we think that that's probably, at least in part, responsible for his very picky eating habits even to this day. So yeah, so we're a big foodie family. My son is getting better about it, but my daughter, who I fed totally differently, has embraced all the food that we make. And if she doesn't, it's because she genuinely tried it and just doesn't like it. I mean,
Hmm.
they have opinions, right? They're not going to like everything just because you give it to them between 4 and 18 months. They're going to make their own decision. So it's
And
been
it's
fun.
healthy, honey. Eat it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's some broccoli. You're going to love it. No,
Right.
but yeah,
Right.
we just want them to try everything and enjoy it the way we do.
So, Erica, given the fact that you are a true foodie, what have
Hmm.
you eaten today?
Oh God. Oh, today just a peanut butter and a banana. I My big meal of the day is always dinner time because that is family time. Again, it's all about family and the stories that you get to tell and the time you get to spend together while cooking and eating. So usually I eat my big meal for dinner. So actually, a banana peanut butter is good for me. I'm so swamped all day that I generally like. I know it sounds stupid. Everyone's like, "That's how do you forget to eat?" I really do because it's just back to back to back to back. Pick up the kids, blah blah blah. You know, like after school activities, and then more work and more conference calls, and so. But that's what I ate today, and that's one of my favorite snacks.
So, what's for dinner?
Dinner tonight is actually my homemade pesto that comes from my Aunt Marina's recipe. She's from Torino, actually. And I just make a huge, like, roasted vegetable pasta, eggplant, zucchini, peppers, yeah, onion, all of it. And it's one of our favorite meals. I make it a lot because it's so packed with nutrients. We use a multigrain pasta. So that's for tonight.
When you were growing up with your Italian mom, some people call the sauce, they call it gravy.
Yeah.
What did your family call it? Did you call it sauce or gravy?
We just called it sauce, but I do think most Italians call it gravy. But we
Hmm.
we we call it sauce. So it's our Sunday sauce. It's it's marinara, whatever you want to call it. But we're sauce people. We're on the sauce side.
When you make meatballs, what kind of a breakdown of flavors do you use in that? And what kind of meats do you use in your meatballs?
So usually whatever I have, like if I have stuff in the freezer, you could throw in pretty much any meat. But if I were to go out and intentionally buy the meat, it would probably be pork, beef, and I use sausage in it too. Veal is great. It's not always easy to find, but my secret ingredient, which now is not so secret, but I put a decent amount of ricotta cheese in my meatballs, and they are just like so light and so delicious. It's
Okay.
really hard to dry them out when you put ricotta
Yeah.
cheese in.
That's a good little
Yeah,
tip for people who are watching us right now.
it's so good.
So besides being a master in Italian cooking, what else do you cook?
Oh, I cook literally everything. I mean, any kind of
Uh-huh.
cuisine, like I make it. Curries and Indian food, Asian food. I make my own pad thai, make my own pad see ew. I mean, we cook from all over the world. My husband's a great cook too. I don't let him cook as much because like as busy as I am, cooking is cathartic for me, and I feel like I need it, to settle down and to just kind of unwind and all of that. So yeah, really, it runs the gamut. I'll cook any type. I love French food too. We do that. So I'd say we're pretty versatile. Like paella. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But yeah, we cook it all.
Did you grow up on the East Coast, and where are you now?
Yeah, I did actually. I was born in New York, and my parents still, having lived in South Florida for 40 years, they still sound like they're like right from New York. So they moved us to Florida when I was a baby, and then I moved to Chicago for college and stayed for about 20 years. And now I split my time between Chicago and South Florida. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
on the East Coast here in South Florida as we speak.
When you're born in New York, it's in the fine print that you have to eventually be in Florida
I know.
or LA.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It sure is. And it's funny because now, having spent all the time I've spent my whole adult life in Chicago, most Midwesterners go to the West Coast of Florida, whereas most Long Islanders and New Yorkers and people, from kind of the New England area, they all go to the East Coast. So down here where I am on the East Coast, it's all New Yorkers. And then, all my friends and, family from Chicago and all that, when they come down to Florida, they just tend to go to the West Coast, which is kind of funny.
Right. What part of New York did you grow up in?
Well, we moved down to Florida when I was a baby, but
Oh, okay.
we're Long Islanders. Yeah.
Same here.
Oh yeah, I know. I can kind of still hear it, but you have a New York accent.
Syosset was where I was living till the
Yeah.
age of 10.
Oh, you
The
moved to
accent kind
Hawaii.
of stays with you, right?
It does. Mine's gotten more New York since I moved back to Florida, and I spend so much time with my dad.
Right,
But
right.
people in Chicago think I sound like I'm from New York, and then New Yorkers think I sound like I'm from the Midwest. So I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me.
So what are your next steps for Globowl? How many different flavors do you have, and what new flavors will you be introducing?
So we have six flavors now. We launched the Italian, the minestrone, and we launched the bibimbap. So we have six. We are always developing new recipes in the background. A very wise mentor advisor said to me, "You always have to be thinking innovation and at least 6 months ahead." So we are launching a brand new item that has never been done in baby food. So we already have Thrive Market is gonna bring it on online, and then we'll work with Fresh Time in the Midwest to have some exclusive launches with it. So I'm really excited to be able to start sharing what that is when the time is right. But very, very excited. We're just really trying to change this category and provide the absolute best, options that we can for babies right from the beginning. They are developing, like their systems are not fully formed. Like that is when they need the most nutrition. They need their immunity built up. They need to be free of as much microplastics as possible. Like I
Hmm.
know that they're unavoidable. You and I consume them no matter how hard we try. We're still consuming them, but we could do our best specifically to try to avoid it with our children whose bodies are still very much in development. So that's what we're trying to do, is really just have a line of the best options out there for babies' health.
I love the entrepreneurial spirit that you exude. So this is really
Thank
great. I'm,
you.
I'm happy that you're doing this because no one has really done it before, have they?
No, nope. We are the first to create kind of this, it's almost like a category within the category. There are definite bigger companies that have taken note of it and have launched some similar flavors, but a lot of the other companies in the baby food aisle today, they're predicated on being free of the allergens. They're predicated
Hmm.
on being in these convenient pouches. So, they can innovate with the recipes, and that's great. It's more awareness for what we're doing as well, and ultimately brings awareness to the category as a whole. So it's good for business no matter how you cut it, but they can't really innovate in the same ways that we can. One, we're nimble and smaller. And two, like I said, they're predicated on being free of these other things or doing things their way. It's really interesting. I'm glad to see the space getting the attention it needs. Glad to see other companies expanding their flavor line. All in all, like a rising tide lifts all ships. So it is a good time, to be in the space that I'm in. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting. Global flavors are everywhere, by the way. They just hadn't touched the baby food aisles.
Labor entrepreneurs like yourself and myself and a lot of others have this wonderful passion for flavor.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the challenges of getting shelf space when you get into a place where you want to sell your flavor and you want
Yeah,
to be able to put it out to the public, because that's an entirely separate operation. Can you
it
talk a
is.
little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yes. So when I launched this, or when I was getting ready to launch it over those 2 years of development, I always said this is a retail first brand. So many brands start on online and they're shipped directly to customers, and that's a phenomenal plan as well. And it's worked beautifully for a lot of companies, even baby food companies. But this to me felt like a shelf ready product. From a business perspective, I understood the cost of acquiring a customer on D2C, and I understood the cost of a trade spend or promotions at the store level. And to me, I'd rather have the added exposure of being on the shelf. That's marketing in and of itself, right? So that's the path that we took. Now, it is extremely difficult, and you have to think how there's so many of us that, want to start a food brand or are great at cooking and think that their sauce should be bottled. It probably should, but it's very difficult to get into stores. It's difficult to have the funding to pay the, trade spend and things like that. It's difficult to know who the right buyer is or who the right contact is. Like, what you don't realize going into it is how much can I do on my own. I'm used to doing a lot on my own, but some of it you just can't, right? You need connections in a space that you may not have. So, who do you go to for that? Is it a consultant? Is it a broker? Is it an internal sales representative? You have to really make those connections. And I think that's the difficult part, is finding out kind of who to contact, how to contact them. Everyone likes to be approached differently. What are they looking for this year? What trends are they following? Are they a trend setting store, or do they like to follow the trends? And that's not bad to follow the trends. Some stores, that's what they do. They look at the Erewhons of the world and the Gelsons and stores like that to see what's new and innovative. And then they kind of come along. And so there's all this to know that it's very difficult to know on your own, especially if you don't come from the industry.
It's an entirely different business getting on
Yes.
supermarket shelves than it is
Yeah.
creating food products.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like running separate businesses, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's why you need to delegate and get the kinds of people that you have backing you,
Yes.
right?
And also, yes. And the very first hire that I made was a director or head. Her title is head of operations, because the operations of a company like this are so complex. And if you think about it, day one, it wasn't very complex. It's like, yeah, the co-man, they made the food. Do now what, but now, now we work with two national distributors. We went from 2 distribution centers to 8 distribution centers over the course of 12 months. We've got a supply chain that we want to make more efficient, right? We have transparency into all of our ingredients, including testing and all of that. Testing is a job in and of itself, right? Just following the rule. Well, unfortunately, there weren't a lot of rules around testing. We always proactively tested. Now there are, thank God. California is leading the way with that stuff, but that's a job in and of itself. So there's a lot of operations. And like you said, it's totally different than cooking the recipes, coming up with the concept and all of that, and bringing on a head of operations right from the get-go. Just being in a very small entrepreneurial environment every day, she's got that entrepreneurial spirit, because if she just were to say, I'm only doing ops, don't try to bother me about that social media influencer, that's not going to work. We all wear all the hats, but she is doing a phenomenal job running our operations, supply chain, and all of that, and then also assisting as needed. We all have to do everything. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
Right. And modern businesses like yours now really do have to pay attention to your social media. Your designers are really important, your artists, all of the
Yes.
packaging. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, I could see there are a lot of moving parts going on here.
So many. And the branding part is my favorite. I love that part. I hope the jars and the labels and everything and the website represent my love of that, because it's like my heart on a jar, and I work with the most amazing designer who just brought this whole vision to life. That's one thing I don't mess around with. The brand and the integrity of the brand, the continuity of the brand, that's extremely important, whether it's on social media, on the jar itself, on the website. And that's like a job in and of itself. Every single one of these departments should have somebody running it.
Erica, before I ask you how people can locate your company online and your products, what can you foresee about the future of baby food? Do you think it's going to follow in the footsteps of what you're doing?
All great questions, so thoughtful. So to answer the question about where do I see it going? Competitors can follow suit with the flavors they kind of already have. I keep up with a lot of the data points. And in addition to like global flavors being everywhere, there's tons of other things that are trending or that we can start to look at towards the future and see where they're going to go. I think glass is going to be increasingly popular because of the sustainability of it and because of the health reasons behind it. People can sit there and say it's more expensive, it's more this, it's more that. But is it? It depends what you're looking to achieve, right? Like the cost of peace of mind and the cost of leaving the planet better than you found it, the cost of making sure my baby isn't consuming microplastics, at least through my food. But I think, we're going to start to see that baby food should not just be dumbed down, again, using that phrase. So I think there's going to be more of that. I think certifications and labeling, there's going to be trends towards that. USDA organic is extremely important, which we're in the certification process now. We use all organic ingredients, but it's a whole process, everybody. It's not easy. So we're getting that now. But what about low sodium? What about no sodium? What about no added sugars is extremely important, or 0 gram sugars? Like, what are the next sort of claims that we all want to make for someone to pick that jar or that pouch or whatever off the shelf? So I think I try to stay up with all of that. I do a lot of work reading the reports and the data and seeing where things are going. Not going to lie, we're usually ahead of these things. I read it after we've already kind of thought about it, but that's the beauty of being small and nimble right this second. I don't want to be small forever. I'd love to be nimble forever, but
Sure.
we don't want to be a small company. We want this in as many hands as humanly possible. We think this is the best way for kids to have the nutrients that they need and to live better lives.
So people if their interest is piqued and they want to find out about Globowl, or they want to find out a little bit more about your company and yourself, how do they do that?
Of course, you can go to globowl.com, Globowl, or follow us on our social channels. It's The Globowl everywhere. And we are sold on Thrive Market. We're sold on Amazon. So if we're not in a store near you, we are available online and nationally. And then we have our store locator on the website, which will show we're in hundreds of stores at this point. I think we'll hit over 1,000 stores by the end of the year. So you'll be able to find us a little, more close to home than just Amazon, hopefully very soon.
Oh, that's so exciting for you. I'm really happy about that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for visiting with me today on 50 Tastes of Grey. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for having me on and sharing the global word. It's so appreciated.
Let's just say aloha for now, and we'll be in touch down the line. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.